It's time for the new legendary. Let's jump in and see who we are getting alongside Emblem Ike and Emblem Marth. It's Male Corrin. Okay, Male Corrin was one of the ones I was thinking. It was like Male Corrin, Soren, or Soth was what I was thinking. Green Dragon Infantry. Okay, so we have his preference weapon, Hoshida's Breath. This has Slaying and has Distant Counter built in. And then at the start of turn, if his HP is greater than 25%, he gets a Times Pulse effect. He'll also get stats based off the number of allies with 3 spaces times 3, a max of 14. He gets 7 flat damage reduction, and that is brave damage reduction, so we're seeing it both attacks. He'll also have a scowl effect built into his weapon, and then also he'll get another times pulse at the end of combat as if his HP is greater than or equal to 25%. So like a double time pulse. Essentially, he can keep his special cycling, right? And then lastly, he has a Dragon Adaptive damage. We then have his preference special, Dragon Fang Shot. Okay, so what this essentially is going to do is you're going to boost your damage by 40% of your res when the special triggers. And then if your res is greater than the foe's res, you're going to get non-pierceable damage reduction. It should be based off 4 minus your current special cooldown times 10. So a max of 40% non-pierceable DR, so pretty similar to Desert Altina. We also then have your special is triggered or is ready during combat. You're going to get to ignore 50% of the foe's damage reduction. And then lastly, after combat, if your special triggered, you'll apply a new Divine Vein Water on target space and on each space within 2 spaces of that target for 1 turn. What Divine Vein Water does is essentially it's a difficult terrain for ranged foes, so very similar to like actually flame terrain in the same way, but it also inflicts speed -5 on them, and it reduces their non-pierceable DR and reduces their pierceable DR by 50%. We also have a new tier 4 B skill, High Dragon Wall. Essentially what this does is it has a phantom res effect, but instead of +10 it's only +5. You also inflict speed and res -4 on the foe during combat. And then if your res is greater than the foe's res, you get up to 40% damage reduction. So this is essentially like a Dragon Wall effect, right? But lastly, it also makes it so that foes with the range equal 2 cannot warp into spaces within 4 spaces of Corrin. So this is like anti-warp effect, but it's only against ranged units. So this is really, really strong, right? Like it's just an improved version of Dragon Ball, which is like already pretty nice. But the fact that you can turn off warping is really, really good. And also like the fact that you get the Phantom Res, so it makes it even easier to hit those res checks. Okay, so when it comes to roles, what is Corrin really trying to do? Corrin's obviously an Omni tank here. They're just completely going for bulk, trying to make sure that they can just not get hit and like proc their special over and over again, and in doing so also put down some like annoying terrain for the foe, which also makes it easier to win speed checks, but also makes it so you can easily secure kills as you get an additional 50% damage reduction piercing, right? So when you stack that with his special, he'll have 75%, which is really, really strong. When it comes to Corrin's overall power, I do think he will be quite strong. He'll definitely be like a tier 1 Omni tank, but I'm not sure if he's at the same level of power as like Emblem Ike. And the reason for that is that he doesn't have as much non-pierceable DR as Ike does. He also doesn't get the flat DR from like something like Lelou's Friend. He gets 7 in his weapon, which is nice. But the things that really make me like consider him possibly below Ike is the fact that he doesn't have like NCD, and he doesn't have an easy way to get NCD. This is kind of the problem that we've seen with like Legendary Male Lear, Legendary Female Lear, and even Altina as well, is that they had to give up that B slot for NCD, and that B slot is way weaker than the current B slots, right? Lelou's Friend 4 is like absolutely insane, and that's one of the B skills you definitely want, but some of the other options like this High Dragon Wall that was just introduced, or even the Bulwark 4s, are typically a way better skill as they give Brave DR, or they give AoE DR, or just more stats. And so I do think that having to run that NCD4 will definitely bring him down a bit. And if you don't run that, he does have the weakness to flash skills, which have become more common. There's just a lot of those out there, so that's definitely something you'll have to consider. But overall, I do think Corrin is quite strong, and he'll definitely be a powerful Omni tank if you're looking for that. The last thing I will mention though, of course, is that I'm not the biggest fan of like all these Dragon Omni tanks we've gotten. I think this is like the 3rd Dragon Legendary Omni tank we've gotten like within a year, which is kind of crazy. And the fact that he's also green is kind of a bit weird considering we have Legendary Female Lear, and also that he's a Fire Legendary, but he obviously has the water theme with his water terrain. Either way, I'm glad to see Male Corrin finally get a Legendary after so many years. He's definitely deserved it. Okay, let's move on to the rest of the banner, and let's talk about the colors in the order that I think they are actually valued the best. At the top, of course, has to be red. Red is absolutely insane in this banner, and I think this is the most valuable red pool we've had in a very, very long time. And the reason for that is we have 2 emblem rings, and these emblem rings have had major meta impacts since they've released. They essentially allow heroes to become like relevant, they add power to heroes, they are just absolutely game changing. And so because of that, if you do not have these two Emblem heroes, that is definitely a reason to pull, as they are color sharing, which is a very big deal. We have Emblem Ike over here as the best Omni tank in the game, meta in every game mode. He's like top 3 units in the game essentially right now, and his Emblem Ring really helps. And not only that, he has Goose Friend 4, which is like one of the best skills in the game, if not currently the best. On the other hand, we have Emblem Marth, who has the better Emblem Ring in my opinion, but he himself is not the best unit. He's a very good melee nuke, don't get me wrong, it's just that we don't really have much uses for melee nukes at the moment. And then lastly we have Kvasir, and Kvasir is fine, she's a good dark mythic, but definitely nothing to write home about. And if you do want to use her at like the optimal build, you have to have Devoted Basket, which means you needed to have summoned a Selena back in the day, which not a lot of people have, so that is something to consider. But overall this red pool is very strong. Okay, next we have the green pool, and I think the green pool is the second best pool just because you are getting 2 fire legendaries here. Unfortunately, they're both green dragon Omni tanks, which kind of sucks, but either way, you're going to be getting some legendary scoring. So if you do need a fire core, this is the chance to get that. Or if you like summon on a hero rises, this is a chance to like complete your Allure, which can be very nice. And then on the other hand, we do have Rearmed Lucina. And Rearmed Lucina is an insane support unit. She like just offers so much to your team with action economy and treachery. And that's not even it, she even has an arcane axe, and she can skill duplicate, so I just think she's a fantastic unit. So if you don't have a copy of her yet, or if you're like already invested into Lucina, this is a great place to pull. In third place, we do have Colorless. I think Colorless is pretty solid. It really depends on your account if this is worth pulling. Asker is still one of the best meta light mythics in the game. You just boost your score and works in a lot of strategies, so that's very nice. We have Golveg. I'm gonna be honest, Golveg herself as a mythic is not very good. She typically dies to everything, so her triple action doesn't really like do much. But she has absolutely amazing fodder, some of the best fodder in the game with Flared Sparrow and Occult Strike, so that's very big. So if you do get copies of Golveg past the first one, I would definitely recommend foddering that. And then lastly, we have Hortensia, and Hortensia is a fantastic support, very powerful support, and she comes with Arcane Staff, and she can duplicate fodder, so just very solid pool in colors if you don't mind getting like extra copies of Golveg or Asker. And then lastly, we're gonna have Blue Pool. I think Blue Pool is pretty far down compared to the other ones. We do have Mythic Lumera, who is a pretty good support right now. The problem is that like you have to merge her up to use her in your main core. But if you are looking for an Astro Mythic, she definitely can work out with like Omni Tank teams. That's really where she's gonna shine at, as she can give out that AoE damage support through her terrain, which can really help out Emblem Ike. She also has some decent fodder. We then have Legendary Shaz, who is a powerful nuke still. You are going to need some premium fodder to have her work at full power, so that is something to consider. And then lastly, we have Legendary Faye, and I don't really have to say much about her. Like, we all kind of know, she's very much fallen off at this point. Alright, next let's move on to the Fire Legendary tier list. So this has moved around a lot since last year, and at the S Plus deck, I'm still going to have Hinoka. I think Legendary Hinoka is still the best Fire Legendary in the game, and the reason for that is not only because she nukes pretty strong, but she offers mobility and support to the entire team as well, and allows different compositions, which makes it really interesting and powerful. In second place, I will have the new Legendary Male Corrin. I do think he's really good as an Omni tank. I just don't think he's quite up to the level of Emblem Ike. And the fact is that we have so many Omni tanks currently in the game, you probably already have one. So unless you're like a big Legendary Male Corrin fan, I don't know if you really need to invest into this unit, as he probably will get power crept or like pushed out of the meta, as all Omni tanks do in a matter of time. So while I do think he is very powerful, I'm not sure if he's a legendary you should be investing in, especially for an arena core. Also in S Plus tier, we're going to have Lilina. Lilina's remix really pushed up her power, and the combination of that with the new Stillwater upgrade and Occult Strike allows her just to hit really hard while offering that cancel support, so she's a very solid legendary to merge up as well. And then in S tier, we're going to have Shez and female legendary Lear. Both of the units are very solid still, but they do require investment, and they are getting a little bit old. In A tier, we're going to have Celica, Atri, and Edelgard. All of them can work in certain situations, but they're definitely not like the top of the meta by any means, and they're going to need a lot of support, but they are pretty easy to use in arena for the most part, as long as you invest in Edelgard and give her some movement. And then lastly in B tier, we're going to have Roy, Marth, Hector, Xander, and Ephraim. So all the boys are going to be down in B tier. Unfortunately, these units have just really aged pretty poorly over time, and they really can't finish the niche that they used to. Marth and Roy as Omni tanks just cannot compare to current Omni tanks, and Brave Hector as a near save is okay, but once again, he kind of struggles against some of the more powerful units. And then lastly, we have the 2 Cav units who have kind of just fallen off pretty hard. They definitely can work, but they're definitely not the units you want to have merged up if you haven't merged them up already. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video. Should you pull? So when it comes to pros, obviously we have 2 emblem rings on this banner in the red share, and so if you have not gotten a copy of Ike or Marth, I would definitely recommend summoning here for those 2 units. There's a good chance they won't share again, and so being able to get both those emblem rings on something on one color is a very big deal and a good value for your account if you do not have them. If you are just looking for merges for them, that's not as necessary in my opinion, though it can be nice to get those free stats. But the real thing is just getting that one copy that will really help out your flexibility of your entire account. We also have a really nice green share here as well, with some double legendaries there, as well as Lucina. And we finally have a legendary male Corrin, who is a very powerful Omnitic as well. The last thing, of course, is that there's some really powerful fodder on this banner, like Flared Sparrow, Occultist Strike, and Lagoose Fred 4, so that's something to look out for as well. When it comes to cons, the blue share isn't all that great, so if you're looking for let's say Lumera merges, this is probably not the time to summon for. You'll probably want to wait until the next rerun. We also have a new Heroes banner coming up quite soon, and then after that we'll have 2 summer banners back to back, and if you've been playing this game for a while, you probably know summer gets pretty spicy, so you might want some orbs for that. And the last thing we have to bring up, of course, is Choose Your Legends in August. If you're planning to summon heavily on that banner, you're going to want to save a lot of orbs because they typically give 4 sparks to everyone, which means that you can go in here pretty hard and get a lot of value for your orbs. So that's just something to think about as well. With that said, I am very happy male Corrin has finally gotten his legendary, but now I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of male legendary Corrin? Do you think he's going to be a standout in the Omnitic meta, or do you think he falls a little bit short? Either way, make sure to drop a comment down below, let me know all about what you're thinking. As always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.